phase.
Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. My name is Blake Cousins, and in this episode, we're going to release an amazing video sent to us by Open Minds TV at the UFO International Conference. Now let's take a look at this video right now.
Please help me welcome Michael Schratt.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Okay. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank Open Minds for giving me the opportunity to join all of you today. And what I'd like to do for you this morning is give you a brief overview of Project Aquarius and give you some specific details regarding the interaction that Dr. Dan Burrish had with an extraterrestrial called J-Rod. And we've got some very quick announcements before we begin here. Number one, the information, drawings, and illustrations highlighted in this presentation originated from directly the testimony and direction of Dr. Dan Burrish. So in other words, I didn't make this up. This comes directly from Dr. Dan Burrish. He will be available after this presentation to address all your questions. And number two is a disclaimer. The drawings and computer-generated forensic composite illustrations shown in this presentation do not conform 100% to Dr. Dan and Marcy's testimony or descriptions and should be considered strictly as a visual aid specifically designed to give the general public an overall idea of what the S4 facility looked like. So in other words, I didn't get this 100% correct. There are some minor errors here and there in the renderings, but it's definitely sufficient to give all of us here today a good understanding and visual aid regarding what the S4 facility looked like. Now this is the breakdown of what we'll be talking about today. I'll give you a background of Dr. Dan Burrish. We'll be discussing level 4-1. We'll be talking about walking the line. We'll describe what that actually means, what it pertains to. I'm going to give you a virtual blueprint floor-by-floor walkthrough of the 9 hangar bays and all the way through the facility. We'll consider the extraterrestrial and alien craft because there is a difference. We'll talk about the Roswell craft. We'll talk about the propulsion research laboratory at S4. We'll consider the catwalk, the files department, and the cafeteria. For level 4-2, we'll consider Project Sidekick, the weapons research and development, Alice in Wonderland Rabbit, this is a good historical note, Looking Glass Device, Stargate's ERBs or Einstein-Rosen bridges, the doctrine of convergent timeline paradox. Dropping down to level 4-3, we'll consider the MJ-12 residential suites, the boardroom, the culture department, and analysis department. 4-4, we'll look at the weighing pads, the biocontainment labs, badge board, and decontamination procedure. And finally, on level 4-5, which is the lower floor of the facility, we'll consider the clean sphere, the scissor lift, the lighting, the iris aperture, the kick plates, airlock, and the test, which is the totally encapsulated suit. So that's the layout of what we'll be talking about today. So who is Dr. Dan Burrish? He was the youngest person ever to be elected into the Los Angeles Microscopical Society. And in 1985, he received his bachelor degree in biological sciences, and in 1986, a bachelor degree in psychology. In 1987, Dan explored the feasibility of becoming a priest here at St. Patrick's School of Theology. However, that didn't quite work out, so we actually had to bypass that. Now, in 1989, it was Dr. Edward Teller who arranged for Dan to take classes at the University of New York, Stony Brook, and he earned his PhD there. So I ask this question to all of you. Where have we seen this gentleman before, Dr. Edward Teller? Where have we seen him come up in the stories of these type craft and vehicles before? It was none other than Dr. Teller who arranged for, allegedly, Bob Lazar to get his interview at EG&G at McCarran International Airport, and that's how he got his job at S4. So we have secondary independent confirmation that Dr. Edward Teller was involved. In 1991, he was employed at Desert Storm as a biowarfare expert. Now, in 1994, he received his Q clearance at S4, and he began working on something called Project Aquarius. And I will draw your attention here to the aircraft sectional chart that anyone can get at any local airport. This is something that's readily available. And if you look up here on the right-hand corner, you've got R-4808N. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most highly guarded airspace, Dreamland airspace in America. This is the borderline here. You'll notice Groom Lake is right up here, so we can see it does exist. Approximately 12 miles south of Groom Lake, there's something called Papoose Lake or Area S4. And it's important to note that if you ever try to break into this airspace within the 4808N airspace, Dreamland, three things immediately happen. Number one, ATC at Dreamland, Air Traffic Control, will not allow you clearance to enter into their airspace. Number two, they will immediately, if you do not egress the area, they will immediately scramble an F-16 who will perform a particular maneuver where they'll fly perpendicular to your flight path at about 100 feet away from your aircraft, and then when you fly into his jet wash, it will either depart from controlled flight or you might end up wrecking one of your wings or tearing one of your wings off. So that's the second thing. And the third and final thing is you'll receive a final warning to exit the area, and if nothing happens, they will lock on with a Sidewinder missile and they will neutralize the target. So the bottom line is don't try to break into Dreamland airspace. Okay, so at S4, again, he received his clearance, and he worked under the direction of the Naval Research Laboratory and the Defense Intelligence Agency. So these are the two outfits that are running the program at Area S4. The EG&G terminal, 737-200, how do you get to Area S4? Well, it's the EG&G terminal, which is the gateway to Area 51 and S4. As you're flying on this airliner here, just before the hairpin turn into the landing approach on Groom Lake runway, which is a 27,000-foot runway, it's the largest runway in the world, there's an ATC clearance called Pyramid. That is the clearance to land at Groom Lake. And what's interesting, a historical point from Dan Burrish indicated that on the trip on the 737-200 to Groom Lake, they played Neil Diamond's song, Coming to America, over and over and over again. So the question is, what is the encrypted symbolic message that they're playing on the airplane as you're going there? Well, under its original interpretation, that song talks about immigrants coming to America to make a better life for themselves. That makes a lot of sense. But under the direction of what happens at S4, it actually is talking about extraterrestrials coming to America and specifically coming to S4. That was confirmed by Dan Burrish as the correct interpretation. Now, when you land at Groom Lake, how do you get to S4? It's 12 miles away. There's three ways. You can take a blue-colored Air Force bus. That's number one. Number two, you take a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter. The third and final option is a Russian Mi-24 Hind-D helicopter gunship. So those are the three options that you take to get to S4. Now we're flying, we've just landed, we're at the helicopter landing pad. We're now going to enter the facility for a virtual walkthrough. And you'll notice that there are some very interesting lines here on the tarmac. We have two parallel red lines, okay? And then there are two parallel blue lines. This is called walking the line. And you are told, according to Dan Burrish, and this is a very oppressive society, it's not a user-friendly area. It's not something that is a nice place to be at because there's black guards with guns and it's an oppressive society. You are told to follow the blue lines and do not breach the boundaries of the red lines, because if you do, ladies and gentlemen, they will shoot you. That's the level of security that we're talking about here. Now, we're entering the facility, and you'll see this swinging door to enter the facility. It turns out that that is actually incorrect, so we've made the correction the actual door to get into the S4 facility is none other than a double sliding glass door with an indented receptacle which is circular. You turn that to the right, that's how you get into the facility. Very similar to what you would see on your patio door. Now we've got the layout. We start at the top, it's 4-1. Second floor is 4-2. We've got 4-3, 4-4, and 4-5. We flip to the AutoCAD rendering to give you an idea of what that facility looks like. Keep in mind that anything below 4-1 is all underground. Now, area S4, 4-1. This is the blueprint that I was able to put together under the direction of Dr. Dan Burish. And if the first thing that happens when you walk in this facility, you enter that door, what you see is this long hallway here, very long hallway. It has the same type line configuration or stripes on the floor. To the left, you'll see a red line. You cannot go to the left. On the right, there's a blue line. You can get access to that. So we're walking up here. The first room to the left, ladies and gentlemen, is actually the avionics lab. Just beyond that is the propulsion systems lab. Over here we have a files department, and we have something called the briefing room. This is a very important room, the briefing room. Why? Because there's something called King Tuts, or training update tapes, and they have something called blue 3-ring DTIC binders, which is Defense Technical and Information Center binders. So I just submit, we've all heard this thing about Carl Sagan stating that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Well, here's where the evidence is. In this facility, they not only have the hardware, but they've got the tissue samples, they've got the motion picture film reels, they've got the high visual digital audio tapes. It's all here. This is what we're looking for. So, on the far western wall, on the interior of each of the 9 hangar bays, there is a 4-1 in